I'm born, thrive, and bred to be built for whatever comes next. And the fact that I never know what it is, that's what excites me.
I mean, there's going to be adversity. So you're going to have to be able to fight through that. You're going to get knocked down, but are you willing to get back up?
You got to show up every day and be you, be consistent with who you are. And knowing that, you've got to find that internal motivation.
So why have the elements of the whole player as a person been so important?
Yeah, well, the best part about my job is that it's not tied to the win and loss column. Like my role is tied to the player and the player making sure he's the most holistic version of themselves. Another thing that I got from Caleb, we're here to make sure that they're the best. Yes, football is what we're here for. But outside of being a football player, you're a father, a brother, a son, an uncle, a nephew, a partner, a community organizer, community member, philanthropist. You have all these other identities that you can help grow and transition into outside of football, but oftentimes players don't have the right people or the opportunities to tap into those other identities, right? And so for me, when a player comes into a Dolphins as a rookie and whether they stay or get cut or whatever, like I'm always going to continue to connect with them because once they're brought into this room, whether if they leave, I'm still reach out because I care for that person. I want them to grow and I want them to succeed. But I also know how hard transition is. We all experience transition in different ways. Some of us go from transitioning into singlehood to it, or from childhood to adulthood, from a college athletic player to a professional league player, from practice squad to active, from active to cut. From playing an active player to retirement. We all have these different transitions in life, but again, we're not taught how to handle these transitions because we don't know when it happens. Sometimes you can go from being an active player to on IR because you get an injury. You didn't expect to plan for that injury, but while I'm in this role, I can help the player prepare for these transitions based on not only my experience but what I know about the player. Again, we can't be in these roles in player development and not know our locker room. We can't just clock in at 8 and leave at 5. That'd be doing us a disservice, the players a disservice, our organization a disservice. This isn't a role where you can just check the box and leave. Like I would be doing our locker room a disservice if I never went in there and connected with who the players are outside of football. Hey, how's the wife? Hey, how's the partner? How's the dog? How's mom? How's the new house? How was the holidays? Like the more I know about the players, the more I can develop relationships with them and then help them with that transition because I know who they are outside of football. If a player is battling through injury, okay, well, let's not talk about football because that's a direct correlation to the injury. How's the family? Have you had a chance to talk to the wife and kids? Have you had a chance to, just break away from everything? That transition piece is huge because I know that can make or break a player. If they handle it right, it's great. If they don't know how to handle it, it can go off the deep end. So for me, transition is really key to helping the player get to that next step in their life, or like we talked about today, the new chapter in their life. Because that next chapter could be going from practice squad to getting elevated for the next game, or going from practice squad to the active roster. Like for that, some guys it can go to their head. They get that first check, that first real check, and now all of a sudden they're not playing the same because they got the bag already, and now they're just good. Or if you're coming in as an undrafted player and you end up making the active roster, huge life change for anybody. How do you handle that? So for me, transition is key, and that's where I kind of hone in my role is helping guys through that transition into the NFL, through the NFL, and eventually retirement out of the NFL. But again, it all comes down to the relationship that you establish with the player, because the more they trust you, I think it betters the conversation to help them handle whatever that transition may be to the next stage in their life.
What are you built on? What is your burn? Where does that discipline come from for you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, again, I didn't know, prior to this, I was at UM doing synthetic development. I didn't know that existed until I got to UM. I didn't know player engagement in the NFL existed until Caleb called me. And I remember it to this day. He called me like noon on a Tuesday and was like, we chopped it up for a couple minutes. Like, are you free at 2:00 for an interview? I wasn't, but I made myself free for the interview, which was that same day. And then at the end of that interview, he was like, we'll come up to the facility on Thursday, and spent the entire day there doing interviewing in person. Called me the following Tuesday, let me know that they were going to make a decision. Called the following Thursday with an offer and signed my contract Friday. So it took 8 days, it's the fastest job process I've ever been a part of. But I say that because every new transition that I've had in my life was I was transitioning into a place that I was never familiar with, that I didn't know existed. Again, student athlete development, didn't know that was a thing until I got to UM. Player engagement, didn't know this existed until Caleb called me. So the fire that I have is I wake up every day thinking something new could happen today. Whether if it's a new conversation, somebody new that I meet, a new idea that could help me help somebody else. I'm born, thrive, and bred to be built for whatever comes next. And the fact that I never know what it is, that's what excites me. Again, like I got a random phone call from Caleb one day, it was 12 o'clock, like random. Now I had known him before that, him and my former supervisor, Sherelle, they were cool because they have the same job in two different areas, college and pros. So we had met before, we've had lunch before, but like I didn't know him intimately like I know him now. But again, that phone call came out of nowhere. It changed my life. The day that Sherelle had called me and asked for, breakfast, I didn't know that was going to be another job description. Like I didn't know that, but every opportunity that I've been blessed to have, I feel like God has put me in a position to not only be prepared for it, but exceed to where it then leads me to wherever he wants me to be next. And that's where my fire comes from, is knowing that I don't know how long God has me in this space, but as long as I'm here, I'm gonna maximize it, because whatever I'm doing now is what's gonna help prepare me for whatever's next. And so I love it, man. Like again, I have every year is a new rookie class. Every year is a new locker room. Every year is a new season. Every year is a new schedule. Like there's nothing is ever the same with football. Nothing is ever the same with player engagement. I have 90 players in the locker room right now. That's 90 different personalities with 180 different issues that could pop up at any moment. That's 90 phone calls between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. that I have to deal with. But I love it because every phone call that I get to me is a sign of trust. That player, that coach, that staff member, they called me because out of their entire phone book, they chose me because they trust me with whatever's going to happen next. And you don't get that often. I feel like what we do in player engagement, like, yeah, we don't go around, yeah, this is what I do, blah, 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 because that's not where our heart is. Our heart is in the service and support of that locker room. And if a player has to call me at 4 o'clock in the morning and needs my help, of course I'm going to be there for that player. Like, yes, I signed up to do this job, but for me, what can I do to help this player get to tomorrow? Like, we talk all the time, like, life is short. A career in football can be even shorter, and you never know when your last down is going to be. And me knowing that, and knowing just how the business side of the NFL works, whether you're a rookie or a veteran, you're not guaranteed another down. You're not guaranteed another season. You're not guaranteed another contract. So me keeping that in mind, I'm like, this player needs me right now, whether it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the morning. This player needs me. And sometimes, there's things where a guy will call me and I'm like, hey, bro, you don't have to handle that. Like, take the L this time. Like, this is a life lesson for you because we've talked about this. But then there's other times where like, all right, stay there. I'm on my way. We'll talk about it later. It's just, it's a unique position that, like you mentioned, not everyone knows what happens in the work that we do. But for me, it's also like, I love this work because of that aspect. No one really knows how deep we go into it in the work that we do in player engagement. But I like that because for me, it all comes full circle on game day. When I'm behind the team, running out the tunnel in the smoke, and whether it was a phone call or a player needed to come in my office and have a closed door conversation, sit in on the couch, have a cry, have a vent session, I see that same player running out and making plays Sunday. That's when I know it was worth it.
You're right about that. A lot of adversity, guys, because when I got to the San Francisco 49ers, they handed me this big playbook. So all of a sudden, I got to try to learn this playbook. And it took away from my ability to focus in on catching the football. So I was dropping footballs. And when you are drafted in the first round, and I was number 16 taken in the first round. Al Toon, Eddie Brown, they went before me. When you're going through adversity like that, the media, everybody is going to get down on you. They're gonna say, well, why did you go draft this guy from a small HBCU, small school like that in the first round? Because, he's gonna be a bust or something like that. So I had to fight through that adversity. I had Joe Montana, I had Dwight Clark, I had Ronnie Lott, I had the greatest coach ever, Bill Walsh, to say to me, he said, look, you're gonna be one of the greatest players ever to play the game. Think about that. I'm dropping footballs and my head coach is saying that to me. But what I had to do, what I was doing during practice, I had to transfer that into games. And I always wanted to catch that first ball from Joe Montana, score that first touchdown. So I put pressure on myself. After I was able to comprehend that big old book and just relax and have fun on the football field, that's when I really got going and I was able to do some incredible things on the football field.
I think now when people look back on all the incredible things that you did, it's fitting that those two words would be behind us because I think people know you are the standard.
What would you say to individuals who maybe struggle with consistency, or they go small periods of time where they exemplify what the standard is and then they stop?
You're not going to be at the top. I mean, there's going to be adversity. So you're going to have to be able to fight through that. You're going to get knocked down, but are you willing to get back up? So, I went through that adversity. I took the criticism and I worked through it. And you got to have that supporting cast around you too, because, without that supporting cast, there's no way I could win, so many Super Bowls. I mean, think about Joe Montana. That's God. The greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Dwight Clark, not one of the fastest guys, but ran very, very, crisp routes. And I would sit back and I would watch those guys. Ronnie Lott being that enforcer on the football field. So we all go through adversity. It's just how you're gonna, get back up and start swinging. And I was in Jackson, Mississippi, a 3-bedroom apartment. I had one camera guy to come out and film the draft. And I had no idea I was gonna get drafted by the greatest franchise ever. I get the call from the greatest coach, Bill Walsh, said, we're gonna make you the 16th player in the first round to the San Francisco 49ers. They had just won the Super Bowl at Stanford against the Miami Dolphins. And I thought about, oh my God, I'm gonna get a chance to mingle with Montana, Dwight Clark, all of these great players, Eddie DeBarlo, the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, all of that. And it was a standard with the San Francisco 49ers. That's the first thing they told me when I got to the Niners. The way we practice, the way we prepare, do all of those things, the way we travel, a professional on the football field, off the football field. You had to conduct yourself in a very professional way. So I go into that locker room and I'm sitting and I'm like a little kid in a candy store, guys. I'm serious, because I'm looking at some of the greatest players to ever play the game, Hall of Famers. And I said to myself, I remember the second I went into the locker room, I said, I got to prove myself. I got to earn it. So during practice, I would catch a 5-yard slant, 95 yards. Every ball that I caught, I finished to the end zone. So these veterans, they're looking at me like, what is up with this rookie? We're going to be out here forever if he continues to run to the end zone. But all of a sudden, everybody else started doing the same thing. That's how you build a team, a championship team. Because now you got guys in position downfield that could help a Roger Craig or, help a Dwight Clark score a touchdown. So, that was major for me. Because I don't think you're always going to be the best. But it's if you're willing to accept that and you lean on someone else, because I never thought I was the best receiver. I'm going to be honest with you. I never thought that I would get a chance to play in so many Super Bowls and all of those things. But I had teammates that I could always rely on. And it's just like you guys in your team. I'm sure you guys got people that you can rely on. And you always got to be able to adapt, man. And sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose. But it's how you, Bill Walsh used to always talk about there's going to be ebony flow during a football game. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. It's how you deal with those lows and to get back up there. And that was something that I was always good at.
Dealing with the highs and the lows.
Yeah, dealing with it and just continue to work, man. That's the only way you're going to work yourself out of it is to stay focused and continue to work and push hard every day.
But you used to run every ball back in practice.
Right.
And I think so many individuals show up and, say, I got a big meeting Thursday of next week. So you kind of go through the motions till you get to the big meeting. Why was it so important for you to literally run through, and why is it so important for everybody in everything that you do, whether it's to run? You'd catch it on the 15-yard line, you'd run 85 yards, and they're going, Jerry, we're tired of waiting for you.
Yeah, I was prepping myself for the game because I didn't want to have a situation in the game where I made a catch and I'm like so surprised I made the catch and I don't run with the football. So when you used to doing this, over and over doing practice, you expect to make that play and you expect to score. So that was the reasoning behind that. I was just preparing myself for that moment. Because if you don't prepare yourself, you're going to be shocked, or you're going to drop the ball, or if you catch the ball, you're going to be like, oh, I caught it. What do I do? I always look that, like, once I catch the ball, it's my little playground now. It's all about my creativity and how I want to get to the end zone. If I got a straight bead to the end zone, it's no way, and I was not the fastest, there's no way you were going to catch me because I had football speed. So some of the fastest guys in the NFL, they're like, how can this guy, like, he ran a 4.6, 4.5, 4.6 at the combine. How can he run away from some of the fastest football players ever? I was the fastest to the end zone. And that was because how I conditioned myself and how I used no wasted motion or anything to get to the end zone. You have to train your body that way.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the messaging is crucial, but also we're teaching more than just the game of football, right? We are teaching, like Coach Saban's model is, if you walk through the doors through Alabama, when you walk out, you're going to have a degree, you're going to be a better person, you're going to be able to be a great member of society, raise a family, be a good husband. Like, all these things were huge importance. And in order to do that, you got to show up every day and be you, be consistent with who you are. And knowing that, you've got to find that internal motivation, right? Of course, I'm a strength coach. I'm going to get you juiced. I'm going to get you cranked. I'm going to turn the jock rock up. I'm going to do all that. But the messaging was so valuable so that they understood, like, there's only one way to skin this thing. This is the standard of Alabama. This is the standard at Georgia, right? Like, this is the standard, and we are going to keep directing the message, right, towards that standard. And, every coach has their disciplines, and I just worked for two that had shared the same exact disciplines. So it was easy to continue to go down that line, because every day you can find the struggle, and every day you've got to push through it, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the issues you got going on outside. It's so important that you push through that moment so that you can achieve what you're looking for. So staying on target, and it's a business too, right? These kids don't want the merry-go-round. The real ones want to know, what do I need to do today to become the next Julio Jones? What do I need to do today to become the next Minkah Fitzpatrick? Those are the things that they're looking for. And so I think it's like playtime's in the locker room. When you step into the weight room, you kind of got to have that over the top, turn that hat back, and let's get to work, right? It's also the same way when you walk into the film room, right? They got to have that same mentality. Like, this is okay. I got to put my thinking cap on, really,
But there, one of the things, because once again, I've been in enough weight rooms, I've been to enough programs where they want to do what Alabama does. They want to try these things.
And these are videos you can find online. So I'm not sharing anything private, but it was a blessing for me to be able to see and learn from you and to be able to do the things that we did at the program. But everybody listening, if you can imagine this, there was a line, right? So there's like a big door that goes into the weight room. And like guys didn't just walk into the weight room and then we'll get started. I mean, everything had a purpose and a reason. It was like, we're going to jam in together so tight that it's like you are one heartbeat before you get in. And if there is one toe over that line, stepping on the floor of my weight room, we're going to do this all over. I mean, I watched every detail of this, and you'd be screaming and you'd be yelling. And then all of a sudden, Coach Cochran would put that whistle in his mouth. And then he'd get up close and he'd put his head down to that line. He'd be looking at that line. There's a toe over that line. You're going back to the locker room, but everybody's in there. The juice is going, and then bang, that whistle goes, and bang, they just go. There's a level of intentionality and detail to understanding how people are wired. And if you're not operating that way in your life, you guys hear me talk all the time about the difference between focus and intentional focus. Coach Cochran, Coach Saban, they drove intentional focus in everything they did, because focus does not win championships. But one of the areas where you drove intentional focus at just an unbelievable level was how much, forget football, forget touchdowns, forget wins, forget rings, forget championships. You drove such a deep level of intentional focus and how much you cared about the lives of every single player. Why was that so important to you?
I felt like it was a responsibility. When you meet the families that come through and they're like, here is my 17 or 18-year-old son, and they are live somewhere else, obviously, sometimes really far away, sometimes close, but here is my son, and I am going to entrust in you that he is going to come out better or achieve his goals or have all the things that y'all been recruiting him to do. Who is going to be in charge of that? And working for Coach Saban, that position coach that was recruiting him wasn't going to be there long. It was just the way it was, right? He's hard on coaches. Coaches can't handle it. But if they can, then if they're a position coach, they're going to take a coordinator position somewhere. If they're a coordinator, they're going to take a head coach position somewhere. So that kid is depending on someone to be their uncle, their dad in place. And I took a lot of pride in the fact that I cared about these kids. And I just wanted them to have success, because it doesn't take long for a cycle to go through and you get the phone calls of, hey, something bad happened to this guy. And after I got one of those, it just reiterated how important my time with them was. And so if I saw a guy with his head down, or just who's normally an extrovert and he's all over the place, and all of a sudden this day he looks like he just woke up and he's just not all in, like, I can pull him from the workout, put him in my office and be like, hey, what's really going on? Like, and sometimes it was like, I got this, I got that, and I need to just work out, right? I need to just go sweat this stuff out. Let's talk after the workout, right? And then there was times after a workout, like I'd be like, hey, come step in the office, because, man, they get pulled in so many different directions. And now with the NIL situation, they're really getting pulled, but they're getting pulled by family, which is worse. So they're getting pulled here, there, and to have somebody with sound reason to say, hey, I've seen this before. This is what I found really works. I've felt the same way you felt. This is what I found really works. The feel, felt, found method. I feel where you're coming from. I've felt that way before. This is what I did that didn't work. I found that if I did this, it really worked. And a lot of times I had to talk to parents on the phone. Like, my wife is a saint, because it was long hours and all that, but I chose the career, I'd be on the phone with parents trying to coach them up. Like, hey, leave your son alone. He's doing great. I know this is his sophomore year and he's supposed to do A, B, and C. But you know what? He's right where he's supposed to be. All he needs is a mom and dad, not another agent, another coach infiltrating him, thinking he's not good enough.